happy Monday morning to y'all. Thanks for joining the show. Today, we're having a discussion about Ethan Mollick's recent blog that he puts out. He puts out a newsletter, blog, however you want to say it. I don't know, maybe twice a month, something like that. And his recent one on working with wizards came out on Thursday. And it really caught my attention because I thought he did a wonderful job of sort of explaining where we've come from his book Co-Intelligence. We'll talk about that. That's okay if you haven't read that book, to where we are today and this idea of working with wizards. And what it's talking about, I'm just going to read this sort of like intro here, is AI transitions from transparent tool to a black box wizard. Are we gaining magical productivity at the cost of judgment, trust, and human expertise? And is it time to develop a new literacy, not the AI process, but in discerning when to trust the conjuring result? And here's some just questions that we're going to kind of get into today on the show, as well as just talk about what Ethan did in his blog and what we think that means. Are we becoming AI's audience instead of collaborators? That's a big part of what he talks about. Should we expect explainability from AI or just really good results? How do we train future experts if AI blocks a path to mastery? He talks about that a lot in the blog. And is it time to design trust models around AI outputs rather than processes? So all that to come on the show. This is the Daily AI Show. Today is September 15th, 2025. I'm joined by Beth, Jimmy, and I'm Brian. And guys, just to kind of kick this off, first of all, I'll share, like I said, the name of the article or the blog for anybody in our chat that wants to play along. It looks like Beth has already put it in there. Fantastic. Thanks, Beth. If you want to play along here, and by the way, the name of his website is oneusefulthing.org. And he's put out multiple different posts in there over the months. And if you're not familiar with Ethan Mollick, we certainly talk about him a lot on the show because I think he tends to be one of these academics that just seems to have a really academic frame of looking at AI. He's at the Wharton School of Business, I think it is. And he has put out a book called Co-Intelligence that came out several months ago. Guys, was that early 2025 or is that even pre-2025 at this point? It might be 2024, right? I don't know. I feel like I read it a while ago. And it was a great book. And I thought he did, a phenomenal job doing it. And the core of the book was working alongside AI. The idea that we have this jagged frontier. By the way, he didn't necessarily coin that term. Several people did. He makes that point in the blog as well. But this jagged frontier, that as he talks about it in Co-Intelligence, is this area where AI, even a year ago was doing great in some areas, but would fall down miserably in others. Right now, I kind of feel like that conversation is happening about slide decks. That seems to be coming up a lot in the news. And it seems like every week or two, there's a new tool that seems to be proclaiming, or people believe is actually creating better, like PowerPoint slide decks. And so Claude working with PowerPoint and Microsoft has been in the news lately. But then if you were to talk to Carl would say, no, I think GenSpark still actually does the best. And then I said, I conjured Carl into the conversation. Carl just joined in our green room as I literally said his name. So we'll get his opinion on that in the back. But that's just one area of a jagged frontier. It can write papers beautifully, has been able to do that for quite some time, but you asked it to put together a really solid presentation deck and it would seemingly fall down. It's one of many, many ideas of jagged frontier. So in this blog, what Ethan is talking about is, hey, I think we're getting to a point now we have to start talking about a different type of literacy, because in Co-Intelligence, we're talking about being prepared and being ready to be, a coworker to an AI something, agent, if you like, assistant, whatever word you want to put on that, but an AI coworker. And what he's talking about is, as he worked more with GPT-5 Pro and some other of the high-level models, he's finding that there's less directions on how the cake is made. You just get the cake. And then there's some notes about what AI might have done to create the cake. And you go, this is a really good cake. Does it satisfy all the requirements for a birthday cake? Yeah, it does. It's got, the cream cheese frosting that was supposed to be in there, and it says "Happy Birthday, Jim" on the top of it. And so it's all right. Does anybody disagree this is a cake? And Beth might go, well, shoot, I don't know. I probably would have done the piping different. Or Jimmy, you might look at the cake and go like, I mean, as a personal preference, I might have done this differently. But then we all kind of go and we go, yeah, but is it a cake? Does it solve for whatever the issue was, which is we needed a birthday cake for Jim? And we kind of go, yeah, Do we know how it did it? No. Are we okay with that? I don't know. That's kind of the question, right? Like, do we care how the cake was made? Do we want to know how all the ingredients were set up, the tools that it used, its process for going about it? Did it do all the dry ingredients first? And by the way, I'm getting way outside my comfort zone because I don't know a damn thing about baking. But I know sometimes you deal with wet and dry ingredients, and that's as far as I'm willing to go in this analogy. Did it split those first? Did it put them together? Did it freeze the dough before it put in the, whatever the thing is? So that's just a silly analogy, obviously, talking about like baking a cake. But when it comes to AI, this has some very, very real outcomes to it. And so that's where I would love to just throw it back to Beth or Jimmy, and Carl join us when he's ready. But my question to you guys is, when you read this blog article about working with wizards, which I thought was like the best term for it, how do we, as I was saying in the questions there, how do we prepare for a future where it's pretty obvious that we're going to have to make decisions, as Ethan says, and to when working with wizards is okay? Meaning that we know we're going to get an output, and then we're going to probably trust that output, but we are not going to know how it got to that output. That part's going to be gray. We're not going to understand it. And as Ethan did in his situations, went back and painstakingly checked the work of the AI and found only small problems. To his point, do you just lean on that, do you get used to that? What happens when it's wrong one time? Are you still willing to lean on the wizard? Okay, I'll stop there. That's just where my brain is. I thought it was a wonderful blog. I mean, I love Ethan's writing anyway, but I just really love this one. And it made me open up my eyes very much the way his book initially did, to say, oh, he's right. There's a different thing that we need to be focusing on here. And it's not necessarily always going to be co-intelligence working alongside AI. Sometimes it's going to be summoning the wizard or conjuring the wizard and saying, that's good enough. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Yeah, Greg is calling out lizard. The lizard wizard. Yes, it's Monday morning. We'll get all the words right before the end of the show, I am sure.
Before the end of the week, for sure.
Yeah, the week, yeah, for sure. And we don't have Andy here for the big words, so there you go. Go ahead, Beth.
I think I'm not sure that a success from a wizard is indication that all of the things that the wizard does will be successful. So right. I think we are needing to lean in more to how we're evaluating. And the challenge for me, I think, is that I don't think we're prepared for this scenario, right? Like we sort of feel like if we spot check a spell check kind of thing, it's all right. It got most of them right. Mm-hmm. We know sometimes there's a problem with there, so maybe we'll just search all the variables of there and see how that works. But this is not pattern-based in that way. And for your earlier question, no, I want to know exactly how the robot made the cake, right? Like, yeah. I'm not dry ingredients, wet ingredients. Like, I want to make sure that there was that was the sugar container because it said sugar outside, but that's not what was in it, right? Like, I want to know. I want to know more, just because we by nature would have a different worldview. But I used to talk about working with AI as like working with an improv partner. And in this context, AI has become a bad improv partner because it's taking over the scene. It's writing everything and it's handing it to you. And it's not able to engage with you in a back and forth, right? I mean, there is, it may be a perfect intern or a perfect PhD you've given it the job kind of thing. But I'm concerned about this. That's my take. Jimmy, Carl, what are you all thinking?
Well, I'm glad that Ethan Mollick brought up the concepts, or identifying the concepts. I think it highlights between this wizard and co-working paths, it's important to understand how you're going to approach using AI. And it really matters on the literacy component, identifying what sense of or steps to take on these patterns, right, or these paths, because for a lot of the, I'll call them the day-to-day work, right, quickly analyze this or write up this report or things like that. It's great for breaking down information and assimilating it into your own processes, right? So having the wizard just come up with the report so I can understand it or absorb that material, great, fantastic.
Mhm.
But as an example of when not to do it, I recently read a report from Canada and Newfoundland. Their education department or an education system came out with a 10-year plan or booklet for educational steps and how to use AI as a component about this, but this is a larger umbrella topic. But there was some sort of failure or mistake in the process because there is several quotations in the proposal or in the book that did not link to actually any real study or real results, right? And so if it was all completely human run, that means there was a QA step that was missed, right?
Mhm.
So our processes still matter. We're just plugging in AI, when it's going to be more efficient for us. So in that case, the wizard approach wasn't, or that wizard path was not properly implemented, and maybe more of a co-working steps for that. For something that's a little more high stakes, and I think he identifies that in the article as well. Is if you need co-working, it's for these kinds of things, high stakes. You need to have back and forth input, things like that. And then the wizard is low stakes, that provisional trust concept where he came up with, where if you would accept these kinds of level of inaccuracies from a person, then that's probably the realm that you're in. So I think looking at and identifying those paths clearly is where we'll get more usefulness out of it. Because I think the most important takeaway is that these newer systems, these newer models and services are going more wizard. We're going to get more and more of that because there has been years of this magical idea in the back of our head of what AI is. And we want the make me this or do all of this for me, right? And that takes so many different levels of trust and input and data to just get to that magical hyped image or fantasy of what AI is going to be. And learning what AI is and what it can really do, cut out all of that hype and have it recognize its usefulness for what it actually does, as opposed to what is promised down the road.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of one of the things that this article highlights. It's like, no, this is how it works for real, and you need to be worried, or not worried, but at least aware of what the trend seems to be with these newer and newer tools, so you don't get the lack of mastery, so you don't let it make decisions for you. You're still the guiding factor.
Well, Ethan points out in the blog, though, yes, there's the issue of how do you achieve mastery in anything if AI does it for you, right? It doesn't tell you how it got there. That's a weird education issue. However, how are you supposed to be the expert in multidisciplinary fields where I can't check both coding? I mean, there's things I'm good at, right? If it happens to be in my wheelhouse, I can check the facts on that, but then coding would just be gibberish, and I'd say, I suppose that looks like coding. I would have to go then get another human who's great at coding, an expert at coding, and go, hey, take a look at this thing that Jen Sparker Manis did or GPT-5 Pro did. Because I just like, it did it. It's working. It appears to be right. But now I want to circle back and check. Carl, I'd be curious to get your feedback on this, because I know you work with some of the higher end models, also not only with what you're doing, but also with clients through 0 to 60. So, you know, I don't know if you're using the GPT-5 Pro as much, but I know you definitely been using more Jen Spark or Manis. Look, I saw it just in Perplexity the other day at a lower level, because I actually was posting it to you guys in the group chat on the backside, and I was like, hey, this is interesting. I didn't expect Perplexity to run a command. I was in Comet, by the way. I was in the browser. I didn't ask it to. I was just doing a normal Perplexity search, and it had something to do with Google Maps. I can't remember what my use case was. But anyway, I was commenting back to you guys like, hey, I'm kind of shocked it's doing this. It's going off and finding the answer in this way. And it wasn't something I initially asked for. I didn't actually think to ask for it. But there it went. And actually, the result that I got back from Perplexity was really, really helpful. And I thought, well, I didn't come up with that. I mean, maybe I would have, back and forth or whatever. It's that whatever the language model Perplexity was using at the time decided that this was a good route to take. And so I looked at the result and I said, yeah, that's actually net better than what I would have come up with. And actually, this is really helpful to me. I didn't circle back and then read all the collapsed bars and say, well, hold on a second. Where did it go to figure this out? I read the result, and with whatever, intelligence I have, I deemed it to be more valuable than anything I would have done on my own. It was sort of wizardry. I don't really know how it went about doing it, because it had run some quick code in the background. With Ethan talks about that. So like in it ran some Monte Carlo scenarios on its own. It decided to do that on its own to check some numbers. It wasn't something he specifically said. So anyway, back to you, Carl. I know you're working with some of these top models. I know you're also, like me, in a lot of meetings with clients and talking about, can we solve for this or can we not solve for this? Sometimes it's a maybe, sometimes it's a, heck yes, I already know we can do this because we've done it before. And sometimes it's like, let me throw it up against the wall and see what sticks, because there's always a possibility that the wizard can do it.
Yeah. Two examples that come to mind when we were doing this, specifically on numbers, right? So the two examples would be, one is invoice consolidation, and two is payroll consolidation. And I think for the most part, when you do invoice consolidation, and we've seen this, so many businesses have this, where you get your vendor statements, like a amalgamation of them, and then somebody has to do manual check invoice statement, like the statement to what you've invoiced, and if it matches anything outstanding, or if there's any discrepancies. And so we find that's like a regular thing for a lot of businesses. Same thing with payroll or any hours kept, especially if you have workers who clock in, clock out. So like construction, you have people putting in their hours, or you have contractors putting in their hours. So when you see that, somebody has to look at hours put into one spreadsheet and hours put into another spreadsheet. Sometimes they have a system, but those systems don't talk to each other, because one group puts it into one thing and the accountants look at something else, or finance looks at something else. So in the end, it's usually compare spreadsheet to spreadsheet. Or if not, system to system, they have two monitors and they have to just cross. So essentially the easiest thing is to have AI to do all that. Now, the question you have when you go back to the wizard is, one, how did it do that? And two, really the question is, I just want to make sure it's accurate. That is the number one. That, like, these people do not care how it did it. It just, did it do it right? Did it calculate? Yeah, it's got to be right. And I would say 6-7 months ago, I would be very hesitant to deploy. I'd be questioning the reliability of some of these models, but now I'm not. I don't like what we've done. What we've seen is just it's really good from a reliability perspective. We're hitting 99%, and these are really simple math it's not even math. It's just like, hey, does this numbers, do these match this? And there's discrepancies, right? So, and in that specific field, once the person starts being comfortable using it over and over and over again, they don't even question they'll spot check it, but after that, they're like, it used to be 7-8 hours I would do per month on this. Now it's taking me 20 minutes. Right? There's no way I'm going back to 7-8 hours anymore. Like, even if it got one wrong, I would have gotten 10 wrong. So I'm like, I'll take the one wrong. And that's the kind of stuff. So when you say wizard, like that's key piece for a lot of people. A lot of our clients that we're trying to do is this kind of stuff, right? So that's exciting for them. I don't think wizard wise they don't care as long as it has the most accurate results. Now on the flip side though, there's a lot of different tasks that you kind of want to know how it got there, because actually I'll roll that back. Even with these things that we set up, we didn't even, this isn't an automation. This is just training people how to prompt properly to get this, and then use connectors and then use agents. But we always say, hey, you make sure you document your process before you implement, like as you implement this. So let's say Claude goes down, OpenAI goes down, something doesn't work. You have a backup that you can actually go back and manually do it for how long. My co-founder is very funny because like he was talking about, so in terms of when we work with the Calgary Police, he was talking some of the younger constables don't know how to read a map. And so, you rely on Google Maps or you rely on these things. And I think one time their system didn't go down. So one of the senior officers in the car was like, I'll just pull my map. And the junior officer, like, I have no clue how to read this. Yeah. So that's what we're kind of seeing here is that, okay, eventually, if the reliance on this is company-wide, what happens when you can't use your AI tool? How do you do this, right? It's like, these are very simple examples. People will figure it out. But like as the tasks get more and more and more complex, because we're probably going to build tasks on top of this task, right? Like to, as a company,
multiple agents working with each other, right? So it not only is there might be a wizard in the mix of the agents, and I don't know how it arrived at its answer, but it might also pass its answer off to somewhere else. And now you have, and what I think you're bringing up, Carl, that worries me is this is all well and good. One, if the wizard, once it's identified that it's used the right path, if you could absolutely ensure that it always used that same path to achieve those results. If humans have gone and looked at it and said and deemed it right, well, for you and your clients, you want to be like, hey, good news, we got this wizard and it does the work and we validated it. But then the very next thing they're going to say to you is, hey, one could be a total random chance, right? Just because it took this path and it diverged and it split and did all these things does not mean, and probably definitely means, it will not take the same path. So how do you lock a wizard down, a path down after it's proven to work? Because I've seen this multiple times with clients where one time I can achieve what they're asking, like really sort of edge cases like you're talking about, Carl. I have some really interesting ones that are all over the place with clients, and they're real pains of theirs. And they bring it to us and we go, I don't know. That's really interesting. We haven't solved for that yet. That's a new one. Okay. How would we do this? And in some cases, Manus or GenSpark or even Agent Mode or whatever does it. But then how do you do it again? Reliably, repeatedly, over and over again. And to your point, Carl, aren't I just really getting in bed with whoever made that wizard? So the OpenAI or whatever, because now if OpenAI jacks their prices up, I'm not saying they would, you're like, oh, shoot, hold on. That's the only wizard that can do it. And we have no idea how it does it. We just know that it's been reliable for years. And now it's like, to your point, and Rachel Woods actually just made this point recently on, I think over the weekend on LinkedIn, where she talks about AI ops a lot, is her experience right now. And she's like, hey, you really should do what you said, Carl, which is have a whole, basically run list that you're handing off to a tool. But that is the more co-intelligence. That's the co-pilot side of it, where you're like, these are the rules, and I'm going to hand this to OpenAI. Oh, you know what? OpenAI is down. No problem. I'm really clear on that. I can basically hand this to Claude, and I'm going to get it. I'm going to get a good result because I'm very familiar with all the steps. But that's not really what's happening with the wizard. So my thing is, one, how do you scale wizards? Because even if you use the exact same tool, immediately with the exact same inputs and variables, you run the risk. Obviously, these are prediction models, as Beth always reminds us. You run the risk of it being wrong or slightly worse. Not even wrong. Wrong is the worst case scenario. It's just slightly worse, or there's drift in there. There's the prompt drift in there or something, right? How do we handle this? So it's back to what Ethan said, and this back to you guys. When do you decide when it's okay to use a wizard and get a good enough answer versus something that you want to be more of a co-worker with back and forth?
The key to me there is you have to manage those expectations off the get-go, where what we find is we always preface it, hey, you are bleeding edge, your company here, remember, this is brand new tech. And we say, hey, we're not looking to automate 100%, but hey, like our big thing is the 10 to 40%. So what our clients are always expecting isn't 100%, but it's enough to, instead of going back to where they were, they're at least 10 to 40% ahead. We tell them, hey, there will be some work that you will need to do as when we ground that. And for how long we've operated, I would say a majority of our clients are more like, hey, whenever we get the call of a problem, it's like, hey, it did this, but we needed to do this extra. And it's not, oh crap, I don't know how to change it.
Right.
Can you do it? It's more of like, oh, just to let you know, we did this. But what's really neat about it is they are empowered to now try to do the fix themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I tried this. Oh, this worked. Can you give me advice on this? And I'm like, oh, okay. And that's where we talk about it. And so that's how we try to really set up our business, where this isn't a complete reliance on us. It's like, we want to show you, we want to set this up, but we've trained you enough that you are getting the skills now to like change it on your own. And this could be something like a very, very simple prompt to a more, hey, this is an N8N deployment, or even in a custom build, we're like, hey, this is how we did it. These are the touch points you may want to take a look at. And like, this is where like training and deployments go hand in hand, because really what you're trying to do is mindset. You're really trying to shift that mindset to be like, obviously in all businesses, there won't be people who will want to do this. They'll just, expect it to work. And if it doesn't, they'll kind of like, yeah, it's not working for me. But that's really where that manage expectation is. It's like, hey, this isn't designed to work 100%. You will have to put some effort into it, but the amount of effort you put into it expands. And, so far we've been really good with that. And the people that we work with, the targeted subject matter experts that we have, are very, they're very AI curious, very, really excited about it. That's who we're always trying to look for. And that kind of prevents the, oh, it doesn't work, so it doesn't like fix it kind of deal, versus, oh, I'm going to go in and I'm actually interested and I want to explore that.
You bring up a good point, Carl, that I have inadvertently been the wizard sometimes for clients. because of training and things like
Mhm.
that. And I'll give you an example. I create AI assistants, which is just fancy ways of saying, but we call them assistants, not because we want to be unique or different, but because assistants could deploy in ChatGPT as custom GPTs, Gemini as gems, or Microsoft as copilots. So we just universally call them assistants. And then agents obviously are things that connect and go out to other tools and stuff. Anyway, that's how we do it at scale. Just, it keeps it easy for our clients. But here's what I was about to say. Interestingly, I mean, you guys would smile at this, but interestingly, if I build an AI assistant, a custom GPT for a client, and I'm like, it does this, this, and this, and this, I solve for them, right? I'm the wizard in the back writing all the prompting. And I'm like, I know it works because I've tested it this way, that way. But it's funny because I will have clients sometimes go, oh yeah, I saw it give me this answer. And then I stopped and I thought I should come talk to you because that was a little off or whatever. And then I'll sometimes say like, well, did you just ask for a follow-up on that part of it? And they'll say, oh, no. And they're like, I can do that. And I can say, and I'll say, well, yeah, it's still Chat GPT. We've just built this framework around it that does a specific task over and over and over again, right? It's a repeatable prompting. And then I'll say like, just so we're clear, like you can be dead in the middle of wanting the AI assistants that I built and ask it for, you know, what the most popular M&M color is. Like it doesn't care. It'll throw off the prompting a little bit. The GPT will be like, wait, hold on. Do you want me to give you this summary first? It might kick back a little bit, but if you want to go down a M&M road of favorite colors in the middle of the GPT, it will happily try to work with you to do that. And then sometimes it'll try to resend you. My point to it is it doesn't necessarily always occur to clients that what they're looking at is still essentially GPT with some flourishes on it that does a couple things. It's not their fault, by the way. It's just that that's what's built. It was presented to them. We do training on it, but sometimes it gets lost in the mix a little bit that, oh, no, you still have full control over what you want to ask. We've just set up some parameters that are going to get you to this very repeatable end result that you're looking, whether it's prospecting or lead gen or whatever. That's a very repeatable thing. So here, we built the thing that speeds that up super, super quick, but you still have all the power of the LLM to go this direction or that direction if you so choose. And it's a bit of that like, oh, I didn't realize I could do that with the thing you built. You're like, oh, that's right. I got to remember to tell people that we didn't take that power away from them. We just built the structure, you know? So anyway, I just thought that was, anyway, Jimmy, let me ask you, because I know, you know, Beth kind of said at the top of the show, but normally, Jimmy, when we talk about control of AI and stuff like that, your answer is something around, I am perfectly fine. Thank you. I will keep control of this and move forward. Thank you very much. I think I will manage it from here. So like, how do you think we're going to work with this? Because there's clearly areas. I mean, they brought it up in the chat too about like, if you get in one of the Waymos in Austin or now New York or other areas or Phoenix, I mean, there's kind of a wizard driving the car. We don't go, hold on a second. How do you know to stop at that light? We trust the training data and the reliability reports and all that. And you do kind of get in the car and say like, you know, AI take the wheel, so to speak. Like, I hope you get me, fingers crossed, we get to the destination unscathed, you know? So we do obviously rely on wizards in our, you know, GPS was another one that Ethan brought up in his blog. So it's not like we don't already do this in some cases, but I think he does bring up the bigger point about like, look, this is definitely heading to a future where there's definitely going to be parts of your work, personal life, or otherwise where you go, yeah, I don't really have control over how we got here, but it's saving me time, it's saving me money, it's saving me aggravation or whatever. And so I'm going to choose to trust the answer. Like, how do you personally deal with that, Jimmy? Because I feel like that kind of flies in the face of wanting to have a little more control than like these big corporations.
Yeah, I think what it really comes down to is at what level do you think you can pull the lever on that, where your control is going to be. So a lot of my focus when I talk about control is implementation, right? I am a big fan of open source. I am a big fan of on-prem. I'm a big fan of running it on my own hardware, because if I'm doing research or any, you know, R&D development kinds of things, I want to build within my own ecosystem so I know where data is going in and out. And I think for most enterprise, they look at it the same way, right? So a lot of the early moves in the AI space was strictly within, we'll call the consumer side of things, because enterprise wants to lock all that down because of their what their mentality and approach has been up to that point. And we know that data in and of itself is very valuable. And if you have proprietary data, you're generating, insights, then you kind of want to have control of that. When it comes to control for myself, whether that be running my own home labs or my own instances, that's one level. But it's also a matter of how I want to interact with the rest of the world, whether that be through creating tools to connect to MCPs, to other services, whether that be building my own apps or anything like that. It's a matter of having the input. And when it comes to the wizards mentality, that's usually some sort of results-based kind of thing, right? So if I find that my priorities have shifted, like you said, whether this is cheaper, faster, just overall a better return for me or result for me, then that's where I have my input. The questionable things come from the larger umbrella approach to things. Do we just trust that a major foundational model developer is going to create all the tools that I need for any given use case? The most likely answer is no. It'll probably do a bunch of things really well, or it might be a tool that I can use to enable me to, to create my own thing. But what I gathered from this article was the wizard thinking. It really is, and I think you had a great analogy for this earlier, was a system that becomes relied upon, right? And then who fixes it if it breaks down or if it drifts or anything like that. I look at that. When you were saying that, I was imagining what were the reactions or the steps implemented to do that with existing technologies. Take, for example, newspaper press, right? That for 100 years was top of the line printing press technologies, right? Tons of people who were specifically educated on how that worked, but we allowed it to print out thousands upon thousands of newspapers because it's built there. It's a newspaper printing wizard, right? And as time went on, who knows how to fix one of those anymore? Because we don't really use it anymore. Right. So I think that is indicative of a shift as well. There's always going to be this shift in usefulness of any tool, like Carl's example of the new rookies not being able to read a fold-out map, right? Being able to use coordinates and things like that, because that kind of education, that kind of mastery was not transferred over because there was less and less need for it. So this might just best highlight how we need to not necessarily archive, but we need to have those enshrined documentation, right? That enshrined knowledge, so that that institutional memory. Yeah. So that when it comes down to it and someone has their wizard AI and it's like, oh, okay, its accuracy went down from 96% down to 75. We're getting a lot of problems here. Who's going to fix it? It's like, oh, you guys are using this wizard that was like 3 years ago? Nobody. Just build a new one at that point, right? So, but that doesn't solve the immediate issue. So maybe a focus on being able to keep this mastery and transfer this knowledge and have these apprentice programs and this institutional memory is a good idea. And it might be more important now as AI technology shifts so quickly. If we want to know where it got to there or how it got to there, then we need to know. And right now, I don't think there's any real focus on that form of literacy, is to know where we came from.
I mean, Beth, I'd love to get your thoughts on this too, but my thought is on this. Here's where this is going. We will lean on AI to do other AI to do the fact checking, the checking of checking, right? 4 layers down. Well, is this wizardy? Was the output of this wizard right? I don't know. Use 3 other wizards that are really, really good at checking and have a slower inference on purpose. They're one of the thinking models, one of the reasoning models, right? And they're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb and they're going to check all those cited sources that you guys were talking about, where they're going to go and trace that source back to its original location and go, yep, that was a Twitter post. That person said that. We can trace it back or whatever. Here's the thing. AI is going to handle that because it will always be faster to do it. And it's going to become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So deploying 10 AI wizards to check the first AI wizard's answers is going to be very, very cost effective. And it's not going to be cost effective to bring humans into the loop. But what that also means is that, like, the institutional knowledge, yeah, it's probably going to go away because it just wouldn't make sense to keep training people on how the actual process works. If to a certain point, a threshold, like Carl was talking, we're at 99.9.999, whatever, and it's just always right. At some point, as humans, we got to go, are we really going to keep investing institutional and human knowledge to make sure somebody humanly knows how to do this when the damn AI and its agents, its multi-agents that it's working with out in the ether that I do not understand how they do what they do, it just does. But it's always right, or it's least right to some threshold that makes it.
So done. Brian, there's one piece there. I guess it depends on the risk it is, right? So when you said 99.999, it's like, okay, reminds me of driverless cars, autonomous cars, right? I think the threshold that humans have on a driverless car is not the same as a human. We've seen study after study after study exactly. How, like, a driverless car is less error prone than a human. It is like in literally
areas, and there's some parameters there, but 100%. Yeah.
But the number of accidents, I'm just looking at more of a number of accidents caused by driverless versus humans. Humans will always come out on top. But the thing is, that's not good enough. It has to be nearly flawless.
Yeah.
And even then should be flawless, right? So I think, though, the one piece here that we may be missing is that if we have, we just talked about AI doing this process and AI doing this process. But the thinking that I have is, like, are we still trying to fit an AI into a human process? Shouldn't we rebuild this entire thing AI centric? So instead of thinking of it as, let's say invoice consolidation, whatever, it's like, okay, how would we rebuild that? So, because we're just trying to replace the human that is doing the consolidation with an AI. But I'm like, forget that. What does this look like? And I don't know. If AI was already existed when this process first came out, like, how would we do this? How would we do this entire thing? I don't know. We'd have to explore that. But those are the things I think we need to start thinking about, because if we go down that route, that opens up the person to do something else.
Right.
It's like, why would you hire somebody to do this? And I've yet to hear from any of our clients, I love doing this. I hate doing this.
Yeah, that's like, boring, monotonous, repetitive work. Yeah.
This is the worst thing.
Yeah.
There's one person who, one of the tasks she has to do is go into file folders and check if a file's there because a bunch of other processes put the file in there. And I was like, wow. She's like, yeah, it's the worst thing I have to do. And I was like, those are the things. So if you, but that process is connected to a whole bunch of processes. So what if you redid that and had AI, like that is AI centric? So then what do you make the human do? Like, what is their value? And that's not coming from we should get rid of them. It's more of like, hey, now you have opportunity to deploy them in completely new capacities, which we haven't thought about. And that's what I think, like, we're missing the key, because I think like the narrative is, AI is going to replace this human with this task. But I'm like, yeah, but why are you continuing to do that task as if it's a human? Get rid of the task, we do this entire thing, deploy the human. And this is what we tell our clients, like, it's not about really getting rid of the person, nor do we use the cliche, you're going to get replaced by a person who's using AI. No. It's like, this, you can really redeploy your people in a completely new capacities that will grow your company in some ways that you've never seen before. But you're all bogged down by this stuff. And every single company we've talked to is like, you're like, this is all make work stuff, but you have to do it because it's just been ingrained into the company for years, decades.
Right? There's really no other, I'm sorry, Beth. I was gonna say there's really no other version of, but humans just, that's the way humans do it. Like, what do we have to relate to? Like, where do you turn to and go like, but also remember 10 years ago when we just had AI figure it out? There's nothing to go back on. There's no playbook here. So why wouldn't businesses go like, let's get AI to replace the human? And like Greg is saying in the comments, and you're saying like, forget that. Let AI figure out what the most efficient path is, because it can do things that you can't, and neither can you plus 100 people. So
why would you keep trying to do it? Like, why would you? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Right. The other piece of this is that AI isn't a human. It does not have self-awareness. The AI that's going to go back and check is actually a new AI that's designed to watch this AI and watch its process. And if it deviates from the process, then that is like, this is not the same, and therefore. And that is a piece when you are replacing a human with an AI, it doesn't matter how often you say it, like, no, it's actually not self-aware. No, of course it is. I asked it a question about what it just did, and it gave me an answer. Not self-aware. Maybe not the right answer, right? Most probable answer. So sometimes that's right. I mean, Carl, I think you're really onto it in trying to reframe the process so that the human isn't in there, because when you reframe the process, you're thinking, how am I verifying each step? And if you just replace the human, it's so easy to say, Brian, it got it right 99 times. That isn't an indication it will get it right ever again.
Yeah.
And that's so hard for people to conceive of. And also for this, I think the QA skills are different than the I know how to do it skills, right? I mean, I do not enjoy editing, right? My brain goes, I'm in the beginning of that sentence was fine, right? That you need somebody who really loves to edit. I want to see all of the words line up. Yes. My brain is skipping around. And these are the things that I think we're now moving towards. Like, okay, we're going to take the human out of this part of the process because that makes sense from a human standpoint, didn't need all the human skill. But doing that process doesn't mean that you are the right human to edit that process, to QA that process. I feel like that's a different skill.
And by the way, my analogy to that before we wrap things up is, you guys know I put together the newsletter, and Andy is usually the last set of eyes to do it. Well, Andy was traveling, and he said, "I'm sorry, Brian, I can't get into the tool we use. It's 2-factor auth anyway." It was blocking Andy, and he knew there was like no chance. So Andy's like, "I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to take a look at it." So what did I do? I had the big Georgia game on Saturday, but it goes out on Sunday. Like Saturday night, I look at my wife and I go, "I got to go back to the computer and I got to really read this email, this newsletter now, because I can't rely on Andy, who I know is going to look at it with a fine-tooth comb, and he's going to find all the, and you know, he doesn't have a whole lot of edits at this point anymore. We've got this system sort of locked down, but it's honest to God, guys, it was like, put the phone away, close eyes, like, you know, and then I just stared at the screen and I was like, read every single, you know, because I read it as I put it together. But to your point, Beth, like, that's not what I want to do. And like, I lean on Andy as the expert to look through it, and he'll say, oh, I changed this word, or I thought your meaning was this or what that. So anyway, I just make me think of it. Look, I think as we wrap this up, one of the things we're going to have to get better at is humbling ourselves as humans, right? It's something we're going to have to get better at, because there's just simply going to be more and more and more instances over the next several years, and just, you know, pre 2030, like this decade, where there are just wizards involved. And we're going to say, but hold on a second, shouldn't humans, and people are going to go, I mean, we're just going to use the wizard here. And you're going to say, we really need to know, we need to understand how it does it. And it's not going to happen, because either there's going to be other AI checks and balances, which I 100% believe, you know, that's already something that happens a lot. Beth and I, 2 years ago, were teaching in a program where we were using other LLMs, simple prompts, to check the efficiency and efficacy of the first prompt. So evaluation models is nothing new. Nothing new. Rachel Woods was talking about this years ago. So, but we're having more and more sophisticated. So now if you think, oh, I ran one GenSpark and it was a multi-step process, and conceivably there were 10 other GenSparks that ran in the background to check everything the first one did. And that's why I always say, like, this always makes me, I don't want to get into it in this thing, but it's why it always makes me think of blockchain. Because I think there is some technology, some merging of these ideas with AI and blockchain that I'm sure already exists in some ways with banking and high level stuff. But that's what I really believe is going to happen, is these independent sources of AI that are themselves maybe sitting on local computers or otherwise, to your point, decentralized, right? Like blockchain would be. And it's literally doing that to validate the answers. But I also believe this will happen in a blink of an eye, in an instant to us. And whereas we won't necessarily be able to see that whole process, we will get very good answers back with a line that says, this has been verified. And that will mean that it ran through that whole sort of blockchain, you know, system in order to come back with a verified answer. And then at some point, we're going to have to go, are we good enough with that? Because what would it take for humans to actually go do that same process? And I think we're going to move on. So Greg has got all sorts of comments in the comment, and all sorts of comments in the comment section. By the way, that's a good reminder for everybody here. If you want to be part of the live conversation, there's really sort of like, there's one way to be part of the live, but there's one way to be part of the bigger conversation here. So if you want to be part of the live, well, you'd have to be available at 10 a.m. Eastern right now when we're doing this show. And the way you would do that is just by going over to YouTube and going to the live show. And then like Greg and everybody else, and Andy, by the way, who's in there, you can come and join it. You can also do that on LinkedIn as well, but YouTube tends to be where most of our folks hang out. If you want to be part of this conversation, but beyond the show, then I would recommend you go and join our free community. You can do that by going to the dailyishowcommunity.com, which is where you'll be able to join our free Slack community. And as I mentioned, we have the newsletter that goes out. That's a more passive, you know, asynchronous way of being part of the conversation above and beyond the show, but it's growing. You know, we have really, really good open rates. So hopefully that means we're doing the right thing. We have a lot of people who love it. Very, very low people unsubscribing or coming off that newsletter. So I'm going to take that as, I think the newsletter is net positive. If this is the first time you're even hearing us talk or whatever, maybe go join and subscribe to that. You can go to that and get subscribed for free, obviously, by going just to our website, thedailyishow.com. So there you go. There's all the ways and parts and pieces. Lots more shows coming up the rest of this week. So please come back and keep hanging out with us. This was a fun one. Again, the where we had the jumping off point for this topic today was Ethan Mollick's. It's called One Useful Thing is the main title of his blog series. But this one is actually called On Working with Wizards. You can literally Google that and probably find, you can read it for free. I'd also highly recommend subscribing to his newsletter because he puts out amazing content like this. Some of the best that I've seen. So go check that out. So that's it for today. We'll wrap things up. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for being part. Beth, nice to see you back. I know you were back one day last week, but I missed you. So Nice to see you back and hanging out on the show. I know we had a lot of people in the comments who are like, Beth's back. So yes, I think most of us will be here most of this week. So come on back, hang out with us. And yeah, until then.
Aloha.